Hello and welcome to this video where I'm going to show you how to really prepare for the PTE exam. And some of the things that I'm going to share in this video are things that Pearson doesn't want you to know. It's some of the things that I'm also going to share is what a lot of the other major test training providers refuse to share in some of their content. So I just feel it's my duty to share this with those of you who are preparing for this exam. So let's get into it. Who is this for? This is for someone who is thinking of taking the exam for the first time. So if you're on that category, this is for you. This is for someone who's taken the test, not got their desired score, and maybe wants to pass the exam in the shortest possible time. So if that's you, this is for you. And more importantly, this is for someone who's just looking to pass this exam as the end goal. You either need a 50, 65, 79 plus score, and that's the only goal. This is not for someone who is looking to master the English language. Okay, what I'm going to share with you is purely from passing this exam shortest possible time, is from that perspective. Now, it doesn't mean that you will not improve your English, but that's not the end goal. Okay, the primary goal is for us to pass this exam in the shortest possible time so that you can get started with your visa application or your university application, and you can get that going forward. If you're with me, if that sounds good, then keep watching. Otherwise, don't watch ahead. Topics we will cover include how to work on your English, what are the things that you shouldn't be doing, and when it is actually required to work on your English, repeated questions, do they work in the exam, how do they work, templates and strategies, where do they work, where do they do not work, how to know if your templates and strategies are actually working, and some traps to be cautious of to ensure that you do not make some silly mistakes as you're preparing for this exam. So let's get straight into it. This might be a little bit controversial, but okay, let's get straight into it. So the first thing is, if you've not taken the exam, what you should be doing. I'm just going to spend 1 minute on it. It's really simple. So first of all, you do not need to do any special preparation before doing this method. You only have to take the official mock test. Okay, the official mock test, and take the gold option. So the site for the official mock test is ptepractice.com, and if you scroll down, you'll get a gold test preparation kit. This is from the official test takers, Pearson, who creates the actual exam. They have a mock test which gives you similar scores to the actual exam, so you get an estimate of what your performance in the exam will be. Now, I am not affiliated with that site or Pearson in any way, but this is just what I advise people to do before doing any preparation. So how you use it, you do the sample questions, you do what, take it, prepare for it for like 1 or 2 days, and then in the third day you take the mock test, and then you will get a score based on your level. Okay, so once you take this mock test and it gives you a scorecard similar to the actual exam, if you are above your desired score, you do not need to watch any videos, you don't need to spend time researching about material on the internet. You can just go ahead, book your exam date, because you know you've taken the mock test and your scores are higher than what it should be, or in the range of what it should be, and you can comfortably take the exam without any sort of preparation. Okay, if you falling lower than your desired score after going through this approach that I've told you, then watch further. Okay, so simple steps. Take the gold test, prepare for 1 or 2 days using their sample questions, take the test in 3 days and find out where you stand. If you're good, take the exam. If not, you can follow some of the things that I'm going to share with you next. All right, so this is now for someone who's taken the mock test or the actual exam, and that person or you have not got your desired score. What do? First thing is understand the fundamentals of getting a score. So for me, when I look to train anyone on passing this exam, there are three things. The first one is your English. The second one is your use of practice questions, or more specifically repeated practice questions, and the third one is strategy and template. So it's a combination of all these things that can help you do it in the shortest possible time. So let's look at the first one, which is understand the fundamentals of getting a desired score. So English, having good English is the fundamental of getting your desired score. Now what Pearson is actually looking for is your comprehension skills. So if you improve your comprehension skills, it's something that can take a little bit of time. It's a slow approach to do it, but it can help from an exam perspective. So what should you be doing here when you're looking to improve your comprehension skills? So you should be looking to like read a lot of high quality English, and doing that you will start understanding text better, you will build vocabulary better, which are key skills that are required to do well in the reading and listening parts of the exam. Okay, and also improve your listening skills. You can do this by listening to audiobooks or podcasts which have high quality English. Okay, so these are some things that you have to do specifically for the reading and the listening section. To get a good score in the exam, you need to have good English in these two parts. And when I say good English, I specifically mean reading skills and vocabulary. Okay, now what you should not be doing when you are preparing or improving your English, this is just based on my experience of personally working with hundreds of people. Do not learn all the grammar rules. Okay, it is like learning ABC, and you don't have time for that. Okay, um and this is why it I get really annoyed sometimes when a lot of people are focusing on improving grammar, whereas from an exam perspective, I'm not saying it's like a bad thing to do, but it's not the most efficient way of preparing for the exam in the shortest possible time. I see people telling them, teaching how to use grammar, whereas I have students who do not use any grammar and get a 90 score in the exam. Me personally, I've never learned any sort of like grammar rule apart from what I learned in school. That too, like I completely don't remember what I learned, but still I managed to get a 90 score in the exam. And it's not because of grammar. So if you're learning grammar, it's not the fastest way of doing it. And just to give you an example of like how ineffective it is, imagine that you are driving a car and you need to get from point A to point B. Now just to get from point A to point B, you do not need to spend months understanding how the engine of that car works and the mechanics of all that car works. You just need to know that if I am at point A and if I'm in the car and if I press my foot on the accelerator, I will get to point B. Okay, that's all you need to know. Anything apart from that is just additional knowledge that's good to know, but it's not essential for getting from point A to point B. So I hope that kind of made sense. So it's similar with passing this test as well. Now, learning grammar is like kind of learning about that engine, is learning about how all the mechanics of the car works, but you do not really actually need it in the exam. They're not testing your grammar skills directly in the exam. Okay, and there's much faster way of doing it, and working on the method one which I told you, which is just focusing on reading as much high quality English as possible, will help you improve your understanding skills and your vocabulary, which are foundation skills to do well in the exam. Cool. What else not to do when you're like focusing on improving your English? You should not be learning pronunciation. Okay, there's some like 45 sounds out there in the English language on pronunciation, and I've literally helped hundreds of people get to a 79 plus score in the speaking section. It's one of the sections where you can improve your score in the shortest possible time if you have a really good understanding of how the automated scoring system works, and if you're using some really good templates to do well there. Okay, and uh, in out of all these people that I've helped, I've very rarely focused on pronunciation. Maybe just like in 5% of the people that I've trained, I've helped them a little bit with pronunciation, but in 95% of the people, we've just focused on their oral fluency and worked on their content. Okay, and using templates and strategy works really well here. Okay, only a small 5% may need to work on content, may need to work on pronunciation, but majority of you guys watching this video, you're wasting time if you're learning, focusing excessively on pronunciation. There's much smarter ways to do it if you understand how the automated scoring system works and if you're focusing on oral fluency. Okay, next one is repeated questions. Okay, so we've looked at English and we looked at, you need to focus on comprehension and vocabulary and do that as reading by reading as much as possible. Do not focus too much on grammar, do not focus on pronunciation. These are non-essentials when it comes to getting a score in the exam. Okay, repeated question, nobody talks about this. None, the top person, the top people who are affiliated with the PT will not tell you this, and Pearson themselves will not tell you this. What are repeated questions? Repeated questions are questions that are repeated in the exam. So Pearson has a pool of questions from which they kind of select questions to make up every exam set that you get in the exam. So there'll be like a pool of questions, and then they select certain questions from that to give you the pool that makes up your question set. Okay, now, so like, does this help? And I just, how is this pool how we do people source this repeated question is just that when someone goes and takes the exam, they remember a certain question, and it's added into like a list that people compile online, and then yeah, that's like circulated, and then you get certain questions from that list. That's not 100% accurate, but a lot of the questions do actually get repeated anyway. From 30 to 70% of some key questions do get repeated from this pool of questions. Okay, now, yeah, but it's also important to use verified sources when you're using practice, when you're doing these practice questions, right? Because there's a lot of content out there that is like not really relevant, and a lot of the questions do not come from that list. Okay, so make sure that whatever source you are using for repeated question, it's work and it's verified. So when I'm training people, a lot of people have used repeated questions in the past, but they've not got any question from that, and they say that okay, it doesn't work. However, when I share with the people that I'm working with, it's, I know that since I've worked with so many people, I know okay, this is something that really comes in the exam, it has come, and only then I share it with people. So whatever your source you're using, I don't care who are using it from, make sure that there are people or there's someone out there who's told you in the recent past that yes, I'm getting questions from this pool. Okay, and this definitely does help. It can give you a boost of around anywhere from like 5 to like 20 points in the exam if you're using this well. That is the repeated question. Now, templates and strategies. Now, the truth is that this does work in certain parts of the exam. For example, in the speaking and the writing part of the exam, if you use the templates well, and if those templates that you're using are created based on a good understanding of how the automated scoring system works, then it can be extremely useful, and it can get you a really, it can improve your scores in the speaking and the writing section in a short amount of time without having to really work on good English. Okay, so speaking and writing section are two sections where you can kind of trick the exam into trick the system into giving you a higher score than maybe what you even then based on your current level of English. Again, before going to that, again, I'll just cover for the reading and listening section. So for the reading and listening section, do not focus too much on strategy. So for certain questions like um, fill in the blanks, it's not a lot to do with like strategy. It is more to do with your vocabulary. No matter what strategy, if you're trying to use any like grammar rule to do better at fill in the blanks, it doesn't really work like 90% of the times, because they are more so testing you on your vocabulary and your level. It's based on your level of English. Obviously, if you use like those repeated questions, you might get some questions that are repeated, but it's very unlikely that you're going to get all questions that are repeated, because Pearson keeps adding new questions to the pool bank, and they're never going to find a source which has like 100% of the questions repeated in the exam, right? So do not focus too much on strategy, because there is not much strategy when it comes to some questions like fill in the blanks. It's like either you know the answer or you don't know the answer based on your previous exposure to English. Obviously, for certain sections such as maybe the write from dictation, a little bit of strategy can help, but it's majorly down to your listening skills. For example, the write from dictation, which is from the listening section, which is an important question in the exam, if your listening skills are poor, no matter what strategy you lay on top of that, it does not work. Okay, so make sure for the reading and listening section, you're not placing too much emphasis on like tips and tricks, but you're focusing more on the fundamental skill and maybe a little bit of repeated questions, and you have a good combination of those things rather than relying on strategy for the reading and listening section. Okay, now use verified materials in the exam. So if you're using any sort of template for speaking and writing, use something that you know has worked for someone in the past, and use something that someone with your level of English has used and got a desired score. It's a different thing when someone who has a really good level of English, so someone who's maybe at say the 80 level mark, he uses a particular template, he or she uses a template and they get a 90 score. Now that's okay, but if you have like a 60 level of English and if you use that same template, you might not necessarily get a good score because you're not using it effectively, or for you're not maybe filling in the blank for the template correctly. So there might be different reasons why you, when you are using a template, you still do not get a high score. And you should know if a template works based on the results that you are getting. Okay, and I'll just quickly show you an example of what it should look like. This is someone who has used some of the templates that I share in some of my coaching programs. So this person, Anu, she has got moved from like a 66 to a 90 score. And if you look at her speaking and writing score, it was like 51 and 76. And someone who uses templates really well, and if they work in the exam, your enabling skill scores will be extremely high. So you can see your written discourse 90, vocabulary 90, grammar 90, oral fluency 90. If all those skills are high, grammar 80 in fact. So if all the skills are above like a 79 plus mark, then you know that the template you're using is really good and you are using it effectively. So it could either be that the template is not good, or it could be that you're not using the template effectively. So and if you are if you have both of them right, then you will get 79 plus in all your enabling skill scores, which will also translate to a better speaking and writing score. Okay, so that's just how to test if the template you are using works and if you are using it correctly. So I don't care like what source you're using, what template you're using, but if you're not getting the results, you're not using the right material. Do not try to reinvent the wheel. Do not try to create your own template and test it in the exam. The exam is not a place to test things. Ideally, you want to go into the exam knowing that what you are preparing with or the material that you're using works. Okay, so that is just templates and strategies, where it works, where it does not work. Okay, now these are some traps to avoid as you are preparing for the exam. Okay, so these are things that I've seen people make mistakes make mistakes on and spend a lot of time doing, and I don't want you to make the same mistakes. So these are some things to watch out for. Avoid spending more time gathering information and watching videos than actually doing the work. Okay, so what I shared with you is kind of the essentials of this, like the framework of your preparation. But now if you're spending so much time kind of looking at what is the best approach for this particular question, what is the best approach for this, and you're spending less time executing. So for example, if you're spending more time searching for what is the best template to use for the speaking section, what is the best template to use for the writing section, instead of spending more time practicing how to utilize those templates better, then you're doing something wrong. You're like not spending your time effectively. Ideally, you want to spend most of your time on executing on the things that you know, or the things that you material that you have, rather than spending time searching and collecting things. I see a lot of people just collecting, watching new videos, but don't spend any time actually like working on these three things that I talk to you, like improve, like reading a lot of high quality English, practicing using the material which they actually know work, practicing the templates that they have. People focus more on gathering information than executing on information. And I know it can get overwhelming. Okay, when I was preparing for the exam, I had a full-time job, and I know that it's really difficult to prepare for this exam when you're working full-time, and if you don't have a lot of time to study, you need to be very efficient with the time as well. And I know a lot of you people are managing like family life as well in addition to having like a full-time job. So there's no room or there's no time for you to waste on these activities. So just be mindful when you are stuck in watching a lot of content and gathering a lot of information. Okay, if you do this, the people who are focusing on executing and actually putting in the work are going to just like leave you behind, and they're going to get a 79 plus score, and they're going to get the edge over you in terms of their visa applications. Okay, so don't be this person. Information is not useful, execution of the information is useful. Okay, and do little but do it well. So if you have a template that works, use exactly the way it should be used. Don't try to use your own brains and try to add like a new thing if you're not sure of how it works. Don't use half of your own created template and half of another template. It may work, it may not work, but you don't want to be the person that's taking that risk and experimenting in the exam. Okay, so those are just some traps to watch out for. So we've covered um, just a quick summary of this video. I shared with you that this video is for someone who wants to pass the exam fast and is not looking to necessarily improve your English. I've told you that you need to work on your English, and when you work on your English, you need to work on your reading skills and listening skills. So your comprehension and your vocabulary, which comes by reading a lot of English and listening to a lot of English, rather than focusing on grammar and pronunciation, which are not essential to getting to your 79 plus score. Apart from that, we covered repeated questions. You should definitely be using it. Use verified sources. You should be using templates and strategies. You use them specifically for the speaking and writing section. And I've also showed you the traps to avoid, that don't spend too much of time looking for information. Spend most of your time executing and practicing, and rather than searching for other things. Okay, so especially these last two things, the templates and the repeated questions, lot of it's like I would say 45%, maybe 60% of what you need to do to get to a desired score, but a lot of people don't talk about it. And when you see people um, in some of these channels, they get like a 90 score students, right? Hey, I've got a 90 score following your approach. Well, it will also be people who already have a high level of English to begin with. Okay, so if someone has a very good level of English and they are only focusing on maybe some tips and strategies, then it's easier for them to get a 90 score. But if you do not necessarily have a advanced level of English, or if you have an intermediate level of English, and if you're only relying on say some tips and some strategies and not focusing on these template strategies and repeated questions, then it's going to take you longer to get to your desired score. So if you need help getting to a 79 plus score, if you want, like, if you believe in this framework that I just laid out, then click on the link in the description below. We have a program that's called the Target 79 Plus program that is meant to help you get to a 79 plus score in the shortest possible time. We're looking for people sorry, who have a burning desire to pass this exam in the shortest possible time. So if you need help, click on the link in the description and I'll be happy to work with you. All right, this is Steven signing out, and I'll see you guys soon.